Okay, so let's dive into this term, Barracks bunny.
Yeah, it's definitely a loaded one, isn't it?
Right. It really sparks some interest, kind of hints at this, debated side of military culture. You, our listener, you've brought us this really interesting mix of sources.
Mm-hmm. All trying to get a handle on what this label actually means in reality.
Exactly. We've got like a Reddit thread from RUSMC. There's an article called Barracks Bunny Secrets, a VET TV post.
The Wikipedia list of slang, another Reddit thread asking for stories, that TikTok video.
And Urban Dictionary, of course. Can't forget Urban Dictionary.
Never.
So our mission today really is to unpack all this. Look at the meaning, the perceptions, the actual stories.
Without making like huge generalizations, just see what these sources are telling us.
Precisely. What's interesting right off the bat is just the variety of sources you found.
It really is. I mean, this isn't some super obscure slang term, right? It's clearly something people talk about.
Yeah, across different platforms, all connected to military life in some way.
Which kind of suggests it touches on something, significant within that culture.
Totally agree. So let's get down to it. Based on what you've gathered, what is a barracks bunny? What are the definitions saying?
Okay, well, the Wikipedia list of USMC acronyms and expressions is very direct, almost clinical.
Okay.
It basically says a barracks bunny is a female Marine, and she either tends to or is just rumored to sleep around in the barracks.
Ah, the classic hopping from room to room phrase.
That's the one they use. Yeah, very concise and specifically focused on female service members.
Right, a very military-focused definition. Then you have VETTV. How does that compare?
Similar, but broader. They say barracks bunnies are generally females, but importantly, not necessarily Marines.
Okay. So civilians too.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Women who live in the barracks and have sexual relationships with multiple men in their unit.
And they use that really intense analogy.
Oh, yeah. The Ray Rice one. More beat than a girl in an elevator with Ray Rice. It's strong.
Definitely grabs your attention and really emphasizes that perception of, well, frequency.
Exactly. It's designed for impact, reflects a certain kind of attitude towards the whole thing.
Then there's the Barracks Bunny Secrets article. It seems to take an even wider view.
It does. It calls it a catchy nickname, right? For women associated with military communities.
Associated with, so again, not necessarily in the military.
Right. Women who are just rumored to have casual relationships with service members. It frames it more as a phenomenon extending beyond just the barracks walls.
Into the sort of wider social scene around bases.
Precisely. It implies the talk and the perceptions aren't just confined to people living on base.
And we even saw that TikTok video, right? Defender Joe just asking, what is a barracks bunny?
Yeah, the very fact someone's asking that on TikTok suggests it needs explaining to people outside the military bubble.
Good point. Like, the term has maybe leaked out a bit, or there's just general curiosity.
Could be. It indicates maybe a broader awareness or at least questions about it.
Okay, and finally, Urban Dictionary. The Wild West of slang. What did that add?
Well, it gave us a few angles, as it usually does. One definition lines up pretty well: a female, often not in the service, who hangs around barracks for casual sex.
Okay, standard enough.
Another one really leans into the negative side, calling it flat-out derogatory for women sleeping with multiple guys in a unit or on base.
Right, highlighting the judgment that often comes with it.
And then, interestingly, there's even one definition that flipped it: a male who lets others use him for sex.
Huh. Okay, that shows how slang can get twisted around, or used humorously, maybe.
Definitely. But, I mean, overall, the main idea seems to be about women, either in the military or connected to it, perceived as having frequent casual sexual encounters, often, like, physically in the barracks.
Gotcha. So we have these definitions, different shades of meaning, but what about the perceptions, the stereotypes attached to the label? That seems like a big part of it.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where it gets really complex. That Barracks Bunny Secrets article dives right into the whirlwind of perceptions, misconceptions, and societal judgments.
Well, whirlwind, yeah. Sounds about right.
It talks about media portrayals, how they often, sensationalize it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it contrasts something like Girls Gone Wild, which is obviously just about titillation,
right, with
documentaries like one called Serve and Protect that apparently try to be more nuanced and actually deconstruct the stereotypes.
That's a huge difference. Shows how the story gets framed depending on who's telling it and why.
Exactly. It can be twisted for shock value or maybe used to explore something deeper.
And what about the Reddit threads? What kind of attitudes did we see there?
Well, the RUSMC thread was kind of a microcosm, really. You had some comments that were just frankly, derogatory.
Like that deleted one.
Yeah, using a homophobic slur just to dismiss the whole idea.
Yeah.
That tells you something about the negativity right there.
Ugh. Yeah, definitely an undercurrent of judgment.
But then you also had lots of users sharing stories, anecdotes, things that, whether they're strictly true or not, seem to confirm that, yeah, these individuals exist in their experience.
And some of the other terms people use. Desert yetis, yucca yetis, yuma yummies.
Not exactly terms of endearment, are they? They really underscore those negative vibes.
I wonder if the user who suggested barracks rats was a better term.
Oh, right. That was interesting because barracks rat usually means a guy who just stays in the barracks all the time.
So kind of flipping it again.
Yeah, and then they went on to question if Bunny even fit, basically saying the women weren't attractive enough. Something like implies they are even slightly above a 410, which they are not.
Wow. Okay, that's harsh.
It really is. It shows how much judgment some people attach to this label about character, looks, everything.
It's clearly not just a neutral description for some folks. It's loaded.
Which brings us to all the anecdotal stuff, right? The stories. Because that RUSMC thread was just overflowing with them.
Overflowing is one word for it. I mean, the range was incredible. You had tales about, what was it, bush bunnies in Westpac?
Yeah, Westpac, Western Pacific deployments. And the story was they could be laid for chocolate-covered graham cookies from the sea rats.
Sea rations. Wow, okay. And then the one in Seoul for fast food.
A Big Mac and a strawberry milkshake, allegedly. And some were pretty graphic, too, like the mention of a sex worker in Thailand.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Definitely memorable, if nothing else. And the locations mentioned Westpac, Seoul, Thailand, Pensacola.
Right. It suggests people see this or hear about it in lots of different places, not just one base.
We heard about the woman in Pensacola with supposedly lots of male followers, the encounter on the beach at 9 a.m., even rumors about a CO's daughter.
Yeah, at the mega building. And again, these are rumors, anecdotes.
Of course.
But they get really detailed sometimes, like urban legends, talk of lines outside rooms, a specific weekend train room.
The train room, okay. And that surprising story about the Army female in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and an E3. It's just a real mix of narratives.
It is. And it's important, like you said, for you, the listener, to remember these are stories from an online forum. We can't check if they're true.
But they absolutely show the kinds of stories and rumors that fly around. And the sheer number of them does suggest, this is a persistent theme people talk about.
There's also that mention of a sergeant in S1 personnel admin being part of the check-in process. That sounded pretty suggestive.
It did. And that very specific story from Naz Fallon, the mini-mart worker.
Oh, yeah, being escorted around in a trench coat to different rooms.
That really paints that hopping from room to room picture again, doesn't it?
It really does. And it wasn't just about female Marines, right? There was the corpsman mentioned.
Right, Navy medical personnel interested in visiting squadrons. So, yeah, the behavior isn't necessarily tied to one branch or gender based on these stories.
That's a good nuance to pull out.
Though the term bunny itself obviously leans female.
True. And then you had users claiming, like, direct experience, the guy talking about the movie lounge.
Mm-hmm. And the crude joke about Wagner's mom.
Right. Whether you believe them or not, it shows how casually and sometimes pretty disrespectfully people toss this stuff around.
Definitely. Though there was also the user who said they turned down someone, even when drunk. So a different perspective there, too.
Yeah. Suggesting not everyone gets involved or approves.
And what about that phrase from Westpac? I love you forever, GI. What you name again?
Take me to land of big PX. Buy me air-conditioned car.
Yeah.
It sounds transactional.
It really does. It suggests maybe relationships with locals overseas where there might be expectations of gifts or money. Adds another layer.
We also heard about girls supposedly blind calling barracks rooms in Pensacola.
A woman calling duty lines at Kaneohe back in the 80s. Someone at WTI, the Weapons and Tactics Instructor course, who knew the barracks layout really well.
Yeah, without asking. That implies, like, familiarity, being there a lot.
It does. And then the more visceral details.
Yeah.
Smelling sex sweat, the selling cologne, door-to-door thing.
Which sounds like a total euphemism.
Probably.
Yeah.
And again, these are subjective, unverified details, but they add to the overall picture people paint, often a negative one.
Okay, but let's shift gears a bit, because the Barracks Bunny Secrets article tried to look at it differently, right? Talking about social dynamics, maybe even empowerment.
Yeah, it did. It brought up this idea of social capital.
Meaning?
Suggesting that maybe some women use these relationships strategically to, like, build social connections, maybe get financial advantages within that military world.
Interesting. So seeing it as a way to navigate the system?
Potentially.
Ah,
The article suggests that for some, figuring out these dynamics, forming relationships that give them some independence,
hmm
that could feel empowering. It even mentioned Amanda Cerny, the influencer, talking about her experiences in those circles.
Hmm. That's definitely a different way to frame it. Less about judgment, more about agency, maybe.
Trying to understand motivations, yeah. But crucially, the article also acknowledged the blurred lines of exploitation and agency.
Right. That's key. It's probably not black and white.
Unlikely. Probably really complex, varies hugely person to person, situation to situation.
The article also mentioned community and connection. How does that fit in?
Well, it suggests that some women who get this label might actually find support and, a sense of belonging with others in similar situations, often online.
Ah, so like a counter community.
Exactly. A counterpoint to the judgment or isolation they might feel elsewhere. These online groups can be places to share experiences without being immediately shut down. A source of resilience, maybe.
And it stressed the importance of personal stories of resilience. Mentioned a blog post by someone called Christina.
Yeah, basically saying these firsthand accounts matter because they often challenge the simple stereotypes. They show there are real, complex people behind the label and that support networks are vital.
It's about pushing back against those one-dimensional views.
Exactly. Giving voice to their own experiences.
The article also tackled cultural myths versus realities, didn't it? Pushing back against the idea that it's all just shallow stuff.
Right. It pointed out that many individuals are actually focused on personal development, education, careers,
Yeah.
things beyond just relationships.
Using examples like women involved in advocacy work.
Yeah, to directly contradict that stereotype of just like leisure and indulgence, showing that people might be pursuing degrees, building careers, while also navigating these relationships. It paints a much fuller picture.
More ambition and growth, less just partying.
Something like that, yeah.
And it touched on the psychological impact, too. Said it was a mixed bag of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Some might find stability in the military environment. Others might struggle with emotional turbulence, societal expectations.
So it can involve both empowerment and vulnerability.
Seems likely.
Right.
And the article connects that personal level to the bigger picture stuff, gender roles, power dynamics in society.
Makes sense. These things don't happen in a vacuum.
Not at all. They're often tangled up with those broader issues.
And looking forward, the article felt things might be changing, more awareness.
Yeah, it suggested that maybe with increased awareness about gender, power, perceptions could shift.
Yeah.
And that more individuals are telling their own stories, pushing back.
So maybe a move towards less labeling, more understanding.
Potentially, a dialogue reflecting maybe a broader cultural shift.
Okay, let's just quickly circle back to the slang itself. Bunny. The article on Wikipedia confirmed it usually means female Marines known or rumored to be promiscuous.
Right, and that hopping from room to room phrase came up again in both, really cementing that image within the barracks context.
And bunny can just be general slang for a flirtatious or promiscuous woman, too.
Mm-hmm.
And we had related terms like barracks rat for the guy who stays in.
Yeah.
Kind of highlights a gender difference in some slang.
Definitely. And terms like bore punch getting tested for STIs.
Relevance.
And duty NCO, the person on duty who might see things, like in that one Reddit story.
Mm-hmm.
They all add context to the environment.
Right, the setting where this stuff supposedly happens. It was interesting, too, that TikTok title, Understanding Barracks Bunnies and How to Avoid.
Yeah, that framing was noticeable, suggesting it's something you might want to avoid, even if the video itself was just defining the term.
Kind of implies a negative judgment baked in, maybe?
Could be. Or maybe just trying to offer advice to newcomers. Hard to say for sure.
So wrapping this all up then, it's pretty clear barracks bunny is way more than just a simple slang term.
Oh, absolutely.
Nah.
I mean, going through all these sources, you see it carries a lot of weight. So many different interpretations.
Yeah, from really derogatory labels and harsh judgments.
All the way to discussions about social strategy, finding community, even empowerment maybe.
And those Reddit threads, just the sheer volume of stories. It shows how much this idea circulates in military conversations, even if you can't prove any single story.
Exactly. And that Secrets article did try to offer a more balanced look, urging people to look past the simple stereotypes.
So it's crucial for you, our listener, to keep in mind this is a snapshot. Perceptions, stories from a specific culture.
Right. It's not the universal truth, and we're not endorsing any particular view of the behavior itself. We're just exploring what these sources say about it.
So maybe something for you to think about is, how do labels and rumors work in these tight-knit communities like the military?
Yeah, what are the effects? Both good and bad, maybe.
Uh-huh.
Thinking about individual agency versus social stigma.
And what other kinds of unwritten social rules might be operating in places like this? How do people navigate those? It's definitely complex.
A lot to mull over, for sure.